All right, everybody, welcome to Hygiene Elevated Conversations and Innovations. My name is Olivia, your co-host of the day, and today is my first day co-hosting an episode here with Joffrey at Hygiene Elevated. And we're so excited to have invited one of the sweetest hygienists on Instagram. You may know her as PeachState RDH or Julie Campbell. We're so happy to have you today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So today is all about you, Julie. We're going to get to know about you, your career, and what you're doing in the dental hygiene space. So Joffrey and I are excited to ask you a few questions. So we're going to jump right in and ask you to tell us about your journey to becoming a dental hygienist.
Yeah, so I'm a fairly new dental hygienist. I graduated in 2021. So I got a bachelor's degree in communications in 2008. And so I did a lot of other different things, way not even related to healthcare or anything like that, for about 10 years. And finally decided I had been in corporate management and team leadership for Whole Foods Markets, actually, for a long time. And I loved it. That was such a fun company to work for. But the more you grow, the more like the fun gets taken out of what you like to do originally. So I got to a point where I was working a lot, 50, 60 hours a week. And I just really got burnt out and wanted to try something different. And there's a genetic factor here. My dad is a retired dentist and my mom is a retired dental hygienist. So that was kind of always something in the back of my mind. Maybe end up in dentistry somehow, but I finally decided to pull the plug and go back to school. So I did that. What turned into what I thought would be a 2-year program was more of a 5-year journey, because I had to retake all of my science classes because they were more than 6 years between the time that I had completed them. So I had to retake a lot of prerequisites, and then I had to apply to my program twice. So I think I started working on everything in 2017 and then finally started in 2019.
Very cool. And a crazy time to be in dental hygiene school during COVID. Huh?
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. Yeah, because I graduated in 2008 with that crash, and then went through pandemic in my second schooling. So yeah, it was some crazy times for sure.
Keeping it interesting.
Julie, I'm thinking, it's more common than we think of hygienists that don't really get into the program the first time.
Very much so. Yeah.
It's really common, and it's not like a taboo or anything to talk about, because like for me, it was the third program that I got accepted into. And so it really is kind of like, I say this, if anyone's listening that is ready to be a hygienist and wants to go apply, do not put all your eggs in one basket. Just like apply to a couple programs and just see what sticks, because it's hard, it's competitive, and but it's worth it. It's absolutely
it really is. But yeah, that was really eye-opening, especially, I've been out and working for a decade and had a degree, and here I am just applying to an associate's program thinking that, oh, it's fine, I'll get in and this is what I'll do. And the competition and just the stress of going through the interview process was huge, and then really humbling, not getting in the first time. So I didn't end up applying for a couple programs the second time around, but got into the original one. So, and that's something that a conversation I have with a lot of people too, is it's okay if you don't get in the first year. That doesn't mean no entirely. It just might mean not yet. So if this is really something that you want to do, that first no shouldn't be what stops you either. Like, if this is really what you're in for, you got to keep going. So,
yeah. Now I'm curious, how did your dad and your mom react when you told them you wanted to be a hygienist?
They were super excited. And my dad retired. He had some neck issues when I was younger. So he retired before I really got to see him practice. And so now that I get to send him pictures, especially in a perio office, I send him all kinds of pictures and things, and he's like, I didn't even see that in my career. You're doing stuff that So I love having that newfound connection with him. It's really cool, because he was the biggest cheerleader from day one. He got up really early when I was leaving the first day, and we had a virtual graduation ceremony, but you could like see his little face on the webcam camera on the when we were graduating, and it's something really cool that I can share with him now.
That's special.
Yeah. Well, Julie, you have a very well-known social media page that has some of the cutest content to scroll through. Can you tell us a little bit about like where your inspiration for starting the page went and what your page is called so everyone can go follow you?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for saying that. I love that people like what I'm putting out there. But so I'm PeachState RDH. I'd love to say hi. And really that started about 6 months ago was when I really started trying to grow the account. But I relocated. I graduated in Colorado. We relocated to Georgia about 2.5 years ago. And I didn't know anybody. I had just gone from having my cohort of, 20 other students to commiserate with and support each other to having no network in Georgia and just really not finding one either. So I finally decided to just start putting myself out there on social media and create my own support network. And that is absolutely what it's turned into. And this is probably my favorite thing that's happened over the last year is just what people that I've met through social media, the opportunities that have come about through it, and just this really eye-opening, awesome experience of seeing how many professionals are out there that genuinely want to help each other and lift each other up and learn from each other. So that's what PeachState RDH is. And that's why I love to share the stickers. If there's a hygienist in Georgia, like I will send them to you. I just want people to be proud of being a dental hygienist and seeing it as something that's fun that you can connect with others with and support each other and learn from each other too. So that's what PeachState RDH is.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so nice to have hygienists supporting each other and helping each other. And I found the same, that people are just really willing to jump in, have a call. Like, this is what I do in my office. This is how I overcame that struggle. I'm willing to help each other out. And so I'm sure there's hygienists in your area really appreciate you really trying to build that community. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's been really, really neat and really rewarding.
So we wanted to ask you a little bit more about, you mentioned that you were in leadership. And so we want to kind of hear, coming from a leadership role, going into hygiene, what are some things that you've taken from your previous career and previous role into the operatory, into your offices, and how is it helping you thrive as a hygienist?
Definitely. I think my communication skills are something that I'm really proud of, and just being able to talk to people from all different walks of life and really have genuine conversations. And that's something that I started right off the bat. Like, I'm not going to tiptoe around oral disease or being able to have these hard conversations with my patients. And so that's something that I really embraced from the get-go. And with my leadership background, I really love implementing systems and being able to measure things and ensure that they're successful. And if we need to pivot or making something work that, may have worked at another office isn't working here, okay, let's try and tailor it for us. And just really being able to use my voice in my office and really make a difference that way and create a space for the hygiene department to be a profitable destination and a great successful part of the office, not just someone that does the 3-month recares. And my doctor's been really supportive in allowing me to really embrace that and do more within our clinic and within the practice. So that's been really fun. And I hope in the future I would love to explore consulting or just really learn more about how to support other hygienists and implement systems in offices and things like that.
You definitely have like the right idea there, taking those numbers and the power of understanding them. And when you talk about maybe doing consulting in the future, I'm like, oh yeah, you'd be fantastic at that. Like, as if you can read the numbers and know how to manipulate them, fantastic. And also, how lucky for your doctor that you got this hygienist who understands the business side of dental hygiene. Like
Yeah.
that is.
It was funny because I felt so new, like a fish out of water, because I graduated and then didn't work for about 10 months and then started this, what was supposed to be a 1-day-a-week job in a perio office that was quickly purchased by a new periodontist who had just gotten out of residency. And, what I thought wasn't going to turn into anything has turned into where my home 3 days a week, and just something that I'm really helping him grow with. And I love that.
Julie, I want to kind of take it back a minute to your education here, knowing that you had built a really well-established career first before transitioning to school. I know my program was really full of younger hygienists.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience being like one of the more mature hygienists? How did that affect your studies?
It's funny because our class really it was about half and half. There were, your 20, 21-year-olds, and then you're over 30 who are going back the second time. And so it was really interesting to see how that kind of affected everyone. And for me specifically, I knew I was taking, all my eggs were in this basket. This is it. Like there's no, there's no going back once I'm in this program. And so I was 100% like, I sit in the front row, I ask all the questions. I need to make sure I understand everything, because I went to a really large university for my undergrad. At first, I ended up transferring to a different college a little bit later, but I really was one of those, got lost in the sauce. Going to a 300-person lecture hall was really overwhelming, and I didn't do well for those first couple of years of college at all. And I kind of declared communications because I'm like, well, I guess I'm kind of good at this. I like these courses. Sure, why not? I have to declare a major. I'll make it work. And science specifically, I did not have the confidence in those courses. I barely got by with a C in the larger university settings. And then once I transitioned to my second degree was at a smaller community college, that was amazing. You got to really talk to your professors, your instructors, and your cohorts are also people who are in their 30s. Sometimes this is their second time around. And I really embraced the academic part when I went to dental hygiene school, and I loved it. So.
It was funny, in my class, I was the youngest student and my best friend was the oldest student. She was awesome, Joni Beth. She was great. Because she was more mature, she just had an appreciation for everything. Mm-hmm. And she had the real world application down right away, thinking about how you're interacting with people, dealing with people. Like, let's make sense. Let's not be stressed out here. So she was awesome to have in class. So I think having that variety for students is beautiful, where you can learn from each other and appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
So now, if there's anybody who's considering hygiene as a second career, do you have any advice for them? Anything you learned?
I'd say go for it. And I'm glad that I did have my experience prior to going into school. Because it's hard. It's so hard. So I'm really glad that I didn't go. This wasn't my first experience in school or in taking on a really stressful program, because it's a lot. And I think once you have had a different, you've had a career, you've lived life, you've, had all these experiences, I think you do, like you mentioned with your friend, what you need to be stressed out about and what's not going to matter, 6 months from now, a year from now. And just being able to prioritize things and take things seriously. So I think it's fantastic. And then the level of investment for a dental hygiene degree is pretty incredible for the income that you can generate once you graduate. So I think it's a wonderful option for people looking for a second career, want to try something new. I think it was highly, highly proud of myself for getting through it. It was not what I expected it would be at all. But it's really, you'll get out of it what you put into it. And there are going to be times where, your clinic partner is going to be, grows up in a completely different decade, and you're like feeling like you live on different planets, but you really can learn so much from each other. And you're kind of all, like we had a ton of dental assistants that had had a lot of experience in the dental field prior to that, and kind of that learning the didactic things. And, they already knew tooth surfaces and tooth numbers and all that anatomy and things like that. But then once we all got into clinic, that was just like level playing field. It didn't matter how old you were. It didn't matter if you had experience in, you were a dental hygienist, or a dental assistant for 14 years. Like once you're working on your first patient or your student partner, everyone's like, what am I, like, how do I probe? What is this? It was just cool to kind of you jump in together, and everyone's going to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I remember I really connected with an older student in the program as well. Now I wasn't the youngest though. I was more just like more towards the older side actually, because it was really heavy with the 20, 21-year-olds. So if you were over like 23, you were like older.
Oh wow.
There were very few of us, very few of the older ones. And I think because I had a kid, it kind of pushed me into that older club too. That they understood me a little bit better, like the ones that had older children at home, like they could really like understand like why I needed to do this project at lunch and not later in the nighttime, right? So I really appreciated that from them. And the younger classmates just didn't really understand my urgency for like, this is why I have to do it right now, because I have to go be a mom as soon as I walk in the door, right? So that was really interesting, and I appreciate if Lisa, if she's listening, she was really, really sweet to me, so I appreciate that. So okay, I want to go back though. So you mentioned you were able to bring in some communication skills, some leadership, and some business side with the numbers. Is there any other skills you think you may have picked up in your previous career that you brought with you to the clinical setting?
Oh gosh. Let's see, talked about communication systems.
Well, if it was Whole Foods, you knew all the healthy snacks.
Yeah, that was so fun. That was, going from the like food and hospitality world to the healthcare world it's pretty different. But actually something that Whole Foods just really used to do right off the bat was the level of service they used to provide, and really making, we never called them customers, we always called them guests, and they just really knew how to make people feel special and cared for. And I think that's something that I've brought to just how I interact with people as well, and always creating something really genuine, and going the extra mile for people, even if it's inconvenient. We really want to make that visit a positive one, make our relationship a positive one. Especially my practice, we're a referral practice, we're perio. So there's lots of apprehension, lots of questions, lots of neglect by the time that our patients see us. So they need somebody that's going to be there and form a relationship with them, and create that genuine connection. So yeah, that's something else that I bring my customer service background, but I turn it into kind of just creating a genuine experience.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. You know what I wanted to ask you? Sometimes not all practices, especially private practices, because they're run by usually one person, they kind of come up with things as they go. There's not always as much structure as there is in corporate. But you had these leadership skills, but not all hygienists are always given the platform or the space to take leadership. How was that experience for you? Do you feel like it was always welcome? Julie, we want to hear what your ideas, what you have to say, or do you feel like it was a little harder to navigate?
That was actually really hard to navigate at first, because here I am, like a new hygienist, just getting into practicing again. Here's my doctor, brand new, he just got out of residency, and he's a brand new practice owner. So there was a lot of kind of blind leading blind there. But it took a while for me to really get confident in my skills again, just because I hadn't been working and had a really rough kind of postpartum time. But once I just pulled him aside and had the conversation, that was when he was like, oh, well, yeah, you want to do that? Of course. So that's when I stopped making assumptions like, oh, he doesn't want to hear that, or he doesn't want to listen to that. Like, it's just because it's not, what's in your head isn't in everybody else's radar at all. So being very clear with your expectations, your intentions, and your goals is really important to have that conversation and kind of get that all out on the playing field from the get-go. And it was tough. Some office dynamics and the staff that had been there a really long time, with hygienists that, they came in, they did their thing, and then they left, and they didn't ask for any changes. They didn't expect anything different. And then here I was, where I was like, I want this. I want to try this. This is not okay. That's not okay. We're going to try this. And they were like, who is this girl? Like, why is she being like this? And then I got the diva word thrown around a bunch at first, but that's not, like, those are the things that would have affected me a lot if this were my first position, first job out of school kind of thing, or if I didn't have a career prior to this. Because that's when I know my non-negotiables. I know what's okay and what's not okay. And if that's what you're going to think about me, that's fine, because I know that I'm doing the right thing for myself and for my profession. And if you want to call me a diva for that, then that's fine, because I know that's not really the case.
And that's why I think what you're doing, building community, is so important, because if your idea of what dental hygiene is only what's in your office, you could get hurt or get overwhelmed or think maybe this profession is not for me. But when you speak to other hygienists out there and you say, and they can co-sign for you and say, hey, yeah, you're right, that was important to speak up about, then you can have that reassurance that you're doing the right thing. So I'm really proud of you, and I'm a huge advocate for that. Just speak up, because you never know. Sometimes the dentist doesn't notice what you notice. It's not that they don't care, they're just busy with their things.
Yep.
And Julie, I think it's amazing that out of school, your first office, you were like, sign me up for the periodontist. Oh, yeah. Now, I have never worked for a periodontist, and I'm because it's less common. So would you tell us a little bit like what that looks like day to day, since if anyone who's listening may want to consider working with perio more?
Yeah, I love it. And now that's like, I wonder if we move or something, if I do end up in another general office, like that would feel like starting over. Like I wouldn't know what to do, but every office is different. But I love, I get an hour with every single patient for periodontal maintenance or recall. And I get a lot of flexibility in how much time I need for SRP. And I love that there's no like, hurry up, pack the schedule. There's not any pressure there whatsoever. It's really about focusing the need and whatever that patient in your operatory needs. Like, you've got to be able to have difficult conversations, be able to recommend specific products, specific OHI techniques, and have specific motivational conversations just based on your patient. And these are all things that everybody does. It's just the level of the cases that we see. Most of our 70-80% of our patients are all stage 3 periodontitis, and to the point of, I provide the initial therapy with the scaling and root planing, but there's always going to be a surgical intervention after that. So that's a lot of forming that relationship. I always joke and I tell everybody that I'm a long-term relationship kind of gal. So you're stuck with me for a long time. I'm going to see you every 3 months for a long time. But I really love digging in on those complex cases too. I've learned so much about anatomy, so much about just every, surgical side from my dentist, and how that has kind of changed how I operate and perform scaling.
I would love to see what's in your scaling kit. Is there anything special?
I'm still to the point where it's new enough where I just want to try everything. But yeah, I do have I have 3 like SRP kits that I think have like a whole tackle box full of scalers and things. I like trying new ones for sure.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
A new instrument I've tried, I got to work with it for about the last 6 months here, was the Queen of Hearts from PDT.
Yeah,
And
that's a great one.
wow, that is such a game changer instrument. I'm like, wow. And I bring that up because it is so fun to try a new instrument and to just see like, where does this fit really well? And do I want many of these or just a few? Like,
yeah. So now I know you mentioned you started venturing outside of the app because you wanted to build this community around you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started venturing outside of the app? And I also know that you did some career coaching. So I would love to hear about what made you start career coaching and what that did for you.
Yeah, this was about a year ago this time. It was like August, September. I had just gotten back, went to RDH on One Roof in July, and you come back and you're so excited and you just want to do all the things. And then I still realized I didn't have anybody around me though to bounce ideas off of or figure out how to implement things that I wanted, or even what companies were out there, to learn from. And I did. I found Laura and Danielle with the Diamond Girls, and that's probably the best thing that I've done for my career so far. And I'm so glad that I did, because they really just opened my eyes to networking and creating that community. There's so many people out there that want to help and want to get you into the roles that you want to try or want to do. And you just have to really be open to those possibilities. And I love that kind of the social media side is the kind of the passion project of what I do, because clinic is really hard. Those days are long and it's frustrating, and you have good days and bad, and you have to take the good with the bad. But the kind of the outside of the operatory stuff of being able to uplift or inspire or talk with other hygienists, that's the really, fills my cup kind of outside of the op thing. But yeah, gosh, I loved that I did career coaching, because it really helped build my confidence in approaching other colleagues and being able to ask questions and just open that door and form that relationship has been fantastic. And mindset, for sure. I feel like I need to start taking my own advice, because I'm almost on that, like, we just had RDH under one roof in July, and here we are, like, starting in September. I already feel like I'm kind of hitting that slump of like, man, I was so inspired and now I'm kind of but always working on mindset is huge, because we do have a difficult career. It takes a lot out of us mentally, physically, emotionally, and nobody is immune to those bad days or those negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts or imposter syndrome and self-confidence. But the people that you see who are really making a difference are the ones that are acknowledging that and working through it. So I would love if anybody who found me or we have a conversation, if they're really feeling in a lonely, isolated place and I've helped them get out of that, that would just make my heart so happy, because that's exactly why I started doing what I do. I was so tired of feeling lonely and not having a hygienist community.
okay, Julie, you've got to tell us, what is it that you're doing? What have you, after your career coaching, what is it that you're working on doing right now for your hygiene community?
Well, we have started a study club with my office, which has been fantastic and really, really well received in the area, because I'm about 2.5 hours outside of Atlanta. And so if there is a CE or a symposium, it's going to be 2.5 hours away. And that's frustrating for people that need, we've got to get our CE hours. And I love to go to those big meetings and things like that, but that's not for everybody and that's not feasible for everyone. So I was really, really passionate about creating something to get local hygienists, a networking community that we can all just meet at, and also provide CE locally, that you don't have to drive 2 hours for. And my doctor was really, really receptive. So that's something that he is taking on as well within the practice, because it helps, it's a fantastic win-win for both of us. And then it uses, we're able to kind of help with growing referrals and things like that, educating hygienists on identifying certain, periodontal regeneration or grafting and things like that could be an easy referral for our practice. So that's something I'm really excited about. We've had 2 really big meetings so far this year, and then our next is going to be in October.
So are these happening quarterly, Julie?
They will be, yeah. We're gonna have our last one is in October, and then next year we're gonna start out, and that's gonna be a quarterly meeting.
I love so much hearing that you got your doctor on board. Your doctor was like, what a great idea. Not only is it cool that your doctor wants to support you, but the fact that you were able to say like, hey doc, I have this idea. That is so awesome to see. Like, Julie, that is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So now, if there was somebody else who wanted to do something similar, do you have any advice, anything you've learned about planning events, securing a location, reaching out to offices, getting sponsors? Like, share what you've learned, how to do it.
That's been kind of labor of love, and being really fortunate with my doctor's family is in the hospitality industry. And so his mom helps a ton with the location and catering budgets and things like that. So I've learned a ton from her. And then the sponsorship piece is actually something that I'm working on, who I reached out to. It's the counselor hygienist who does muffins and mimosas.
Oh, yes. Kristen, she's amazing. Kristen.
Yeah. And what a cool thing that, that was a lot of inspiration for what I wanted to do, is provide something like that for our area. And I didn't know how to get sponsors. So I reached out, and she's like, oh yeah, here, here's what you could put in a letter to help form those relationships and get those either samples or monetary support, because I had no idea. But opening up that door of social media and creating those relationships, you have a big network, you just have to use it. So I love that I've learned from others kind of as I'm going, because I'm still figuring that out, because we had 2 sponsored meetings this year. But we are kind of finding our footing and going like, okay, what are we going to do for next year? How are we going to keep this going? So still learning for sure.
Yeah. It's an interesting space to get into, because in hygiene school, we're so focused on the science and the clinical aspects and not as much on the business side. And that's why evolution was so helpful for us. It kind of gave us some practical tips on how to build those relationships, but we're still learning ourselves as well. So we love to hear how it's going for you. I'm also a little bit curious about making sure that you get that it's an accredited CE. Are you or your doctor teaching the courses? Or are you inviting speakers to come?
So we had our first 2 meetings, that was a sponsored speaker, and that was provided with Strawman's educational department. And then we are actually going to be submitting our own programs through the American Academy of Dental Hygiene, who I got to meet it under one roof and stopped by their booth to see how that all worked. And she showed me the website and how to start, we just have to start writing it. And then we are starting as hosts for the American Academy of Periodontology, the Dental Hygiene Recognition Program. So that provides a couple CEs per year as well. And so that's an accredited CE provider for hygiene too.
That is awesome. You guys have a lot of really cool things coming up, like for just starting this year. I hope you guys are very proud of this, because I think it is so neat that you guys have.
It's been really fun just to see how it's grown. It's been really cool, because I knew there was a need for it. I just didn't know. And it's one of those things where I've always been the type to I'll fight the battles and I'll carry the sword. And so it gets really frustrating to feel like the one that's always like, hey, let's do this, when you're trying to work by yourself and make something happen. But you have to ask for help too, because I couldn't have done this if my doctor wasn't interested in making it happen as well. So it has to be a mutually beneficial partnership, but just also being realistic about your limitations too. This was absolutely not something I could have done by myself. He has a referral base, and then family that's also really good at figuring out, the venue, how to plan those events and things like that. So I'm glad that I stopped. This is something that Laura and Danielle really helped me figure out, like, just stop trying to do everything yourself and figure out how to leverage those relationships and open things up and learn from other people.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm wondering, you've been through about 2 study clubs so far, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you, in that time frame, have you already seen a shift in your hygiene community? Are you seeing things change a little bit already with the hygienists being a little closer together?
I think so. And I love when we have patients that are referred from the hygienist who specifically said, like, oh, we saw Dr. Condor at this last study club. We love that office. Julie and them will take great care of you. So knowing that it's
hearing that
the hygienist that is talking to the patient and getting them into the office feels amazing. So I love that. And then whenever we had, our marketing coordinator go do office visits, they're always like, when's the next one? What are we doing? When's the next one? So I love that we've started something that people are excited about.
It means you're doing well.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Julie, we love to close the podcast with the same 2 questions for every hygienist who comes on. So I will ask the first one, and then Olivia, she'll get you with the second question here. But the first question here is, if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice as a new grad, what would it be?
Yeah. Gosh, I want everyone to know that there is no specific mold that you have to fit into as a hygienist. We need people from all walks of life who can have genuine conversations, make genuine connections. You don't have to be smiley, bubbly, perfect all the time. That's not what this career field needs. We need people who really want to do the work, and whatever your personality is, you can find an office that will appreciate you, and you can be yourself in this field. So I thought I had to be smiley, bubbly, pat people on the head and make them feel good. And that didn't feel good to me at all. I wasn't being genuine. I wasn't being true to myself. And so once I kind of shed that and was just showing up as myself, everything feels better and everything falls into place, and your patients will appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such good advice. And not every patient wants that anyway, and you can, they can sense when you're being genuine. So
yeah.
Really good advice. All right. And then our last question is, what is something that you wish you learned in school that took you far too long to find out?
Insurance. Gosh.
Yeah,
just the understanding insurance and the impact that it has on every facet of what we do. So the business side, the wage crisis that we've kind of, the simmering, boiling, dental hygienist versus dentist kind of thing that's going on, how your patients perceive it, how your patients understand it. I just really wish that schools taught exactly how that is broken down, and how to navigate that at an office would be really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some big things going on, and we hope the best for our profession, and we'll all keep doing our part to keep elevating dental hygiene. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Julie. It was a pleasure getting to know you more.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we can't wait to hear more about your study clubs and the PeachState RDH community. I can see you doing big, big things.
Thank you.
I agree, Julie. Big things are coming. I'd love to have you back on as a guest, maybe in a year from now, and just do a follow-up and
I love that.
What's going on with your Georgia State RDH and your study clubs. And then before we pop off here, I just want to say thank you to both of you, but especially Olivia, with your first podcast episode today. You did amazing.
I'm so honored that I was your first
So happy to have you on the team, Olivia.
Thanks for helping it go smooth, Joffrey. You guys did it. Yay.
Yes. Have a good night, you guys.